Hi everyone. Today I thought I would talk about bishop positioning and how to make the most of your bishops. Some of the most fun, powerful pieces that can oftentimes be worth even more than a rook. In this case, you'll see they're worth even more than a queen. Um, so in general, bishops are worth 3 points, same as knights, but there are a lot of people who say bishops are actually worth 3.25, and having both bishops, the bishop pair, is worth another zero point 0.5 advantage. And the reasoning is if you have both bishops, then you can control every every color. If you only have one, then if you only have the dark squared bishop, then your light squares you don't have control over and they can be weaker. But with the bishop pair, you're able to control a huge amount of the board. The other important concept is bishops are most powerful in open positions. So that means when there aren't a lot of pawns blocking the way. Whereas knights do better in closed positions. When there are a lot of pawns, then knights can still hop around over pawns and get to good spots. So I have a nice quick example here from one of my games of how the bishops can be really powerful. Um, so as I mentioned, bishops are good when there aren't a lot of pawns in the way. In this position, you see, there's still a good amount of pawns, but our pieces are all up in their face. Our queen and bishops are looking pretty good, minus this bishop. It looks pretty good, but there's this pawn in the way. And as I said, bishops are best when the pawns are not in the way. So what do I play? I push up my pawn one. The idea is the bishop wants to access here. There was a pawn in the way, so I move it. Next, my opponent tries to threaten my queen, and I say, I don't care. I'm going to attack your king. Um, and obviously they have to move their king out of the way or block. So they move their king, and now we see that we have these deadly lasers pointing at the enemy king. If only this pawn weren't out of the way. As I said before, bishops are best without pawns. So, what do? We get rid of the pawn with our queen. It's defended by the rook, so notice the king can't move anywhere. So the rook has to take, and then bishop takes. This is checkmate. We have both bishops eyeing all of these squares. The king can't go anywhere. If you want to go back, all it took was we moved a pawn out of the way so that our bishop could be more powerful. King moves. There's another pawn in the way. So the queen takes it, gets rid of the pawn, and we get checkmate. As I said, bishops on these open diagonals, no pawns, can be super deadly. So now let's try it out in a game, just paying extra attention to our bishop placement. Okay, they start with e4, classic opening, and in response, I like to play the Caro-Kann. Basically, we push c6 in preparation of d5, so that if they take, then we can take back with our pawn. Okay, so our opponent already makes a pretty weird move. As I said, bishops like to be on open diagonals, and in this case, they put their bishop just staring at a pawn. And it even prevents this bishop from ever developing because this bishop is preventing this pawn from moving. So thinking about what we want to do, one option is to take, but that kind of helps our opponent, right? If the opponent likes having bishops on without pawns in the way, then this helps them because then they can take, and then they can push this pawn and develop this bishop. So I think it's actually better if we lock this pawn in place, because then that locks this bishop in place as well. So we're going to push our pawn up. This way this pawn can't move forward, this bishop is trapped, and it kind of forces them to take like that. Now we'll take back with our pawn. And we're already threatening some pretty deadly ideas. Okay, so rightfully so. They put us in check. We are just going to block with our knight. Okay. They're playing very aggressively. Let's think about what we want to do. So taking back is not great because then the queen and bishop both attack our knight. We don't want the queen to be able to attack us much. So we want to think about this a little more. We don't want to let them take either, because then we'll actually end up losing this knight, because we only have one defender and they have two attackers. So we have a couple options. One is we could push our pawn up. I like that idea. Another is we can develop our knight to help defend this pawn more. Another is we could bring out our bishop to defend it. I quite like that idea, because then if pawn takes, then bishop takes and it attacks the queen. So I think we're going to do that one. If bishop takes, then we can simply retake, and now this pawn is very powerful. And as I had mentioned, bishops are powerful when pawns are gone. So we'd be very happy if they took with the pawn, got rid of the obstacle, and let us take. But they don't do that. Instead, they develop their knight, attack this one more time. So we need to defend it again, or remove one of their attackers. Let's see. Let's defend it one more time. So now we have 1, 2, 3 attackers attacking this pawn, and we have 1, 2, 3 defenders. So this pawn is still safe. We have nothing to worry about. And you know, it's a very complicated position, but it becomes simple once you learn to count, if you watched my previous video. Interesting. Okay, that's a really good move by them. They added on an additional attacker. And so now we have two options. One, we can simply take, and then after they take somehow, then we can take here. Oh. So yeah, one option is we can take them, and then if they take back, then we win this bishop because it's not defended. If we take them, then they can take our bishop first. In which case, do we have anything? We can, oh, and then they attack this pawn twice, so we don't really want that. I think better would just be to defend this one more time. The best way we can do that is just move our knight here to defend. I'm just making sure that's the best move. You know, we have time, no need to rush when this is a very important juncture. Because yeah, another option would be to move our knight here to defend. And then we can threaten to fork their pieces. Fork the king and the rook. Alright, let's do that. So now they have to worry about defending here as well. It's a pretty tricky move. So now if they take, then we can take back with, let's say, bishop. And then if knight takes, then we'll go here. Basically, if anything, then yeah, we can go here to attack the king and the rook. And then we'll end up winning a rook out of it. Now let's see. Do we want to play it immediately or do we want to take first? We don't want to take first. Sorry, this is a really complicated game. But if we take first, then they can take. And then attack this, threatening checkmate. Quite dangerous. On the other hand, okay, let's do this. Now, if they take, then we're gonna take with our bishop, and my reasoning is this way we'll win the bishop pair. As I said before, when we have both bishops, then we have the bishop pair, and in this case, if they take with their bishop, and then we take back, then we will have both bishops. They would have lost this bishop, so they would only have this one guy. In which case, we end up with a huge advantage because the bishop pair is so powerful. Okay, so they develop our knight. Whenever your opponent makes a move that doesn't make much sense, this is a pretty weird square to go to, you need to think about what they want. And it seems like maybe their idea is to bring their knight here. We'll notice that right now our queen is guarding that square. So we have to be, 1, careful about moving our queen, and 2, careful if they move this pawn so that the bishop guards the square. Then we need to pay a bit of attention. But for now, we're not too worried about it. So let's just bring out a piece. I think this is nice because, like I said, they want to push this pawn to get their bishop into the game, and this way, because of the fork, they can't move this pawn because our bishop is eyeing the king. Okay, now they can, now that they've castled. I think we're simply going to castle as well. Okay, now you can see their idea. They want to either bring their knight here to pressure this, or to bring their bishop here, pressure our queen. So, really simple way, now that we've recognized their threat, is we can simply guard that square. Now we have nothing to worry about. And you'll notice, our bishop is pretty well placed. It's guarding the knight, while also putting pressure on this knight. Okay, they attack our pawn. We're fine. They attack our bishop, and we're fine with that because our bishop isn't really doing anything on this diagonal. We would rather put it somewhere where it can put a little more pressure, like here. I'm gonna move a little bit faster now. Okay, let's go here. We can't go here because then it would end up blocking the queen's defense of the knight, and we still have 2 attackers and 2 defenders. So we need to be more careful. I think we're doing pretty well for ourselves. Nothing to complain about. Our bishops are both looking quite good. And actually I have a quick, simple idea. So this bishop is just putting a lot of annoying pressure on our knight. So one idea to relieve this pressure would be if we distracted the queen, because these are both pressuring us. So one thing we can do is queen takes, and then we can move our piece to a safer square. Let's think about this. So they're attacking this. It's only defended once. I think this is quite a nice move. It defends the pawn, attacks the rook, and so they have to move the rook. You'll see how much pressure a well-placed bishop can exert. Okay, so we're doing quite well. Rook's gonna have to, basically has to move there. Now let's see. Bishop takes. Yeah, this is a very complicated position. Okay, rook moves. And in this case, we're gonna try to expand our pawns. Again, look how bad this bishop is. Look how powerful our bishops are. So we just want to take up more space, try to further restrict what they can do. Look, this knight can't go anywhere. Bishop basically can't go anywhere. Okay, let's keep thinking. I'm gonna move my queen here because I noticed if this knight were to ever move, then this bishop would be undefended. So we moved our queen up to first defend this a little more and to defend this. It doesn't really do much concretely, but it might be helpful for the future. Thinking about moves we would like to make next. One thing we can really consider now. Whoa. Okay, let's just take it. Now if you give me this check, I'm just gonna run out of the way. And you noticed, their bishop was doing nothing the whole game, so they figured maybe the best thing I can do is just sacrifice it. It's pretty interesting. Okay. They're attacking this pawn, so one thing we can just defend it like this. Another is we can bring our rook up. I think that one might be preferable even. Okay, let's bring our rook up. And the idea is this way we can put our rooks on the same column, and that makes them very powerful attackers. Okay. A really, really complicated game, but I think we're doing pretty well for ourselves. Now we notice that if these two pieces were to move, then the bishop would be eyeing our king. It's a little scary. So one thing we consider is just tucking our king away in the corner here. But we don't need to do that yet necessarily. It's quite difficult to come up with a plan because this position is so complicated. So when you're having trouble yourself coming up with a plan, you can also think about what your opponent might want to do. Honestly, that's not really clear either. We've done a pretty good job shutting down their bishop. Their rooks are hard to move. Is this any concern? I think. Okay, let's just take it. No problem. This pawn is still defended thanks to our queen move that we moved earlier, remember? Specifically to defend these two pieces. They just lost a pawn for some reason. I think maybe they wanted to open up their rook, so they succeeded, but still our bishop is well defended by this pawn, this knight, this queen. So we're not too concerned about that opening up. Okay, so they attack our rook, and because of that, we're simply gonna put our second rook here. If they decide to put us in check, we'll just go to this corner. And now there's not much that they can do. We've done a very good job of shutting them down. Okay, interesting. So yeah, notice if we move up this pawn, then they can win our queen. So instead, I'm going to push our pawn. Attack their queen, defend this one better. If takes, a pretty tricky move. We can't take back because it's defended by the rook. So we might have to take their queen. Oh man. Okay, we have to defend it like... defend it like this, maybe? Or this? Okay, let's defend it like this. Now look, it's attacking both their queen and their rook. So we're pretty happy. Okay. We're going to take this, and now if here, then we're going to go here to attack this bishop. Maybe. Oh, wow. Okay. We're quite happy with how things are turning out. Let's take here. We only have 1 minute, so I can't really talk much. I noticed that it allows this, which is really bad. But I deemed that it was worth it to get so much pressure. Okay, so if they take, what are we gonna do? Oh, whoa, they didn't take. That's weird. Oh, it's, okay. I failed to defend this enough, but we're up 6 points, so it's not a big deal. If they take it, then we'll be down 3 points, but still, it's fine. For some reason they didn't take. We really don't have much time, so we are going to go here. Oh, they went down so that they could take like that, but now if they take, then we can bring our rook down to defend, while also attacking the queen. Okay, and notice now we're putting a little more pressure on this pawn, this important pawn. Okay, I also noticed a really sneaky trick. Really sneaky. Oh, it's not gonna work. Okay, let's go crazy. If they take, then we can take with check, exposing how powerful our bishops are. King has to go here. Whoa. I guess you can go there as well. It's not as good. We're gonna threaten to take this pawn. We have the rook and the queen attacking it. There's no easy way to defend that pawn. Yeah, you can't push it because then we can take it and then this rook gets in the way. So actually this is checkmate. Oh, scary game. Yeah, okay. Quickly reviewing some of the main ideas. They first off developed very poorly. Already we're winning by 1.2 because this bishop is in the way of this pawn. It's looking at nothing. So instead of taking it and freeing up the bishop, freeing up this pawn to develop, instead we kept the tension, made them take, and now we have this powerful pawn center. Okay, they check us. That's fine, we block. We further reinforce that pawn. Noticing that this is attacked twice, or attacked 3 times, we have to defend it 1 more time, while also having a trick of using this knight fork. In the end, we end up taking back with the knight, thinking that if bishop takes, then we can take, and they've lost their bishop pair, and we'll have it, so we would have had an advantage. But they end up not taking at all. Okay, they push up their pawn to advance their bishop, and expecting that they're going to put their bishop or knight here, we proactively defend it. Again, bishops are happy on these diagonals without pawns, and because they've pushed their pawns up, we were able to put our bishop in a more central, powerful location. Notice here, I brought up my queen to defend this bishop and this pawn. It becomes really key later when we move this bishop and this pawn stays defended. They go a little crazy. And to defend this pawn, we just bring our rook up, with the idea that eventually we'll want to bring this rook over as well. Yeah, that pawn push does nothing. You can see the computer thinks we're winning by 6 points, so a rook and a pawn, or 2 bishops worth. And it's because of how powerful this bishop is. This knight can't go anywhere. This bishop isn't really doing much. This rook isn't doing much because our bishop is defended, and the rook's never going to take the bishop. So yeah, we're firmly winning because we thought about how to restrict their pieces, and also we have this really nice bishop. Okay, we double up our rooks like we planned before. This check doesn't really do anything. Our king is now very, very safe. They do this tricky move, but we can simply counterattack. We actually also could have just taken with our bishop. And yeah, thankfully they put us in check. We block it. We win their rook since it attacked both the queen and there was a rook behind it. So this bishop was kind of dormant the whole game, but once we pushed up the pawn, freed up more diagonals for it, it ended up playing a really key role. Here we kind of made a mistake. If rook takes, then yeah, we're not too happy about it because it puts us in check, but also it wouldn't be the end of the world. Okay, so now that we have such a big attack mounting on the king side, their idea was to attack on the queen side. So I kind of tried to shut that down. I brought my rook over so that if queen takes, then we can bring our rook back to defend. And also it pressures this checkmating square, which ended up winning us the game, if you remember. So they take, we bring our rook back, no problem. Here is a bit of a tricky move that kind of, I think, showcases the power of bishops. We just completely give away our knight in order to get rid of this pawn. Pawn takes, bishop takes, and now the king is very, very exposed. King ends up going more in the open, and we decide to really pressure this pawn. Remember, we moved our knight here to pressure it, and now we have both pieces looking at it. And it's really not easy to defend it. There's no way for the opponent to defend this pawn. So the best they could do is just push it, in which case we can simply take, and the only thing they can do is block, and we have checkmate. So yeah, in this position, there's really nothing they can do. Yeah, but it turns out they didn't see it, and we just get a nice, easy checkmate. Cool. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.